Okay, I do have something that is completely unrelated to the topic today, but is something that I promised to come back to, which is the lipstick that I bought,
Oh,
which I am
yeah.
wearing now.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even
It's so natural, right?
I didn't even fully assess your face. No, I did not
Yes.
think about like, oh, she's wearing a lip.
Yeah, okay.
Fun lip.
Catching the viewers up, just as a reminder, this is the Clinique Almost Lipstick in Black Honey. Clinique, sponsor us, please. That I bought because the internet told me that this is what they put on Arwen when filming The Lord of the Rings, and I love it. Okay, I had to make sure that
That we got that in there.
that I closed the loop to speak in how I speak at work all week long. I closed the loop on that, and now we know. I'm a big
Closed
fan.
the loop. Holy
Corporate
America.
America.
So I feel like every episode I talk about Reddit now.
Yes.
I may be a little bit Reddit obsessed. I don't know. I ignored it and was scared of it. I think much like I feel about TikTok right now and have for many years. I just don't know really how it works, and it's like too much. Like I'm scared it just is gonna like suck me in and suck the life out of me.
So can I tell you something about Reddit? I'm usually just like a little scroller, but years ago, I got my cats, 2 cats, and I had built an Instagram for them. And I was like trying to get a following. And I posted this one photo of Rupert as a kitten who looks like a little teddy bear. And it went front page of Reddit. It like went Reddit viral.
Whoa.
I know.
How did I not know that?
Evan didn't even know about it until like sometime last year. His brother-in-law was like, "Did I like one time see your cat on Reddit?"
Really?
Yeah.
Just came across the cat like totally out in the wild.
Yeah.
The wild of the internet, I should say.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. That is so funny. Well,
yeah.
anyway.
There's my little Reddit tie.
Well, I've been saying how I like can't figure out Reddit as if it's like so sophisticated and out of reach, but I realized that to subscribe you just have to, create an account basically. But I didn't realize that it makes you these like absurd automated screen names and I don't know how to change that yet. I haven't tried that hard, but it said, well, you're going to be zealous ideal _knee 809, which also felt a little bit personal because I have a lot of knee problems. Anyway, it got me thinking about screen names, which obviously brought me to AIM.
Yes.
The man, the myth, the legend, AIM.
The millennial everything.
Everything.
I feel like everything you need to know about us as millennials is either in our screen names or in how we all behaved on that platform.
I agree. Both of my first screen name was a mistake. I don't think it says anything about me. It was, this is really tough for me to admit. A lot of people in my inner circle know this, but the backstory is that I really liked those. Well, I still like the peach ring candy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, great.
Delicious.
Great candy. I claimed that I bought a pack of them on some sort of family trip somewhere, and they were called Fuzzy Peaches. I'm guessing they weren't called that. So my first screen name was Fuzzy Peach 333.
Oh, Ashley.
Yeah, that's tough. My mom had to intervene when the associated email account became full of a certain flavor of spam that was not savory.
I think I knew about this.
No. Wait, about my screen name?
I knew what your screen name was. I don't think I knew about the email.
Yeah, well, you don't like talk about
no
porn in elementary school. I'm sure I didn't really understand what was happening, and my mom was just like, delete, delete, delete. This was back in the day when Dix.com, it now goes to Dick's Sporting Goods. It didn't used to, and my mom and I shared that experience together.
I
think
do
my sister
remember
was there.
this. Like, I very much remember shortly after that happened. Yeah.
Well, they probably spent a lot of money to buy that domain.
Good for them.
Yeah. saved a lot of people from a little bit of a shock and surprise. But anyway, what was your first one?
My first and the only one I remember having, although I am sure I got rid of this at some point in high school, but the only one I remember having, which is so incredibly on brand for this podcast, was movie chick, LOTR.
Movie chick. You know, at least it wasn't. I feel like there was a lot of like sexy girl, and it'd be like spelt with a U, or like hottie for you. Like all of these like 12-year-olds just being.
They were all super cringy. Mine was a particularly dorky brand of cringy, but they were all so cringy.
Yeah, mine was definitely. I don't think that one lasted very long for like more than one reason. Obviously, it wasn't very well thought out. It was accidentally very inappropriate. But my next one, I remember the one that I stuck with for a long time and actually thought made me cool, was very cringy, but in a very Ashley way. So it was, I think, Backhill Snowboarder, which apparently, okay, so I learned to ski when I was like maybe 10 or 11, was pretty good, then decided I was too cool for skiing.
Naturally.
Classic Ashley vibe, where I was like, you know what, I think snowboarding is cooler, so I'm going to do that. So I decided I was going to snowboard. My parents were like, okay. They, bought me a snowboard when they bought my sister skis for Christmas one year. I did not know how to snowboard. Snowboarding was so hard for me. I was awful, but still maintained this identity that I was like a snowboard girl. And then to put in backhill, that means that I was, going on like off the, I think it's like off the charted. I don't know, like it must have been like an inner shame that I held on to for a while, like being like, my identity is that I'm a snowboarder, and I was so bad.
Well, maybe you're really trying to manifest. How long did you try to snowboard for?
Years. I think maybe like 2 or 3 until I gave up and just was like, this isn't fun. I'm not trying. And a really funny thing about this when you say manifesting is, so Chris is a big snowboarder, and one of his deal breakers, back when we were young enough to like think we could have deal breakers, was that he like didn't want to date someone who like wasn't a snowboarder. I guess he probably would have been okay with a skier, but he's like, it's a huge part of my life. Like I want someone who's coming with me and doing this hobby with me. And so this was like he saw through. I'm not a skier or snowboarder. For the record, I do not do either. I tried to ski once as an adult, and it was a half-yard sail from hell that almost ended in disaster, but actually ended in just like 2 different people on the mountain having to bail me out. One little kid like scooting on his butt, scooting the ski, trying to save me, and this other man climbs back up on his skis to try to hold me up so I can get the ski back on.
So I also do not winter sport, not a thing. And Evan, also a big snowboarder.
Yeah.
Did try to teach me how to snowboard once years ago. It was very clear very quickly that's not for me. And now when we go on trips, I sit in the cabin in my little cozy space, and that's what I love. I love to go on snowboarding trips. All of our friends snowboard, like all of them except me, and I sit in the cabin, and I am so happy to do that.
Gosh, being a snowboard wife when you're not a snowboarder is actually great. It's so cozy.
Yeah, it's this podcast personified.
Truly, yeah. We need to go on a snowboarding trip together, which just means like our husbands go snowboard and we just hang out in the lodge or wherever we're staying.
Sit in front of the fire. We go into the hot tub, and we don't have to do any of the things that let you deserve that.
Right. Oh, we
don't have to go out and be in the cold. I don't need all those sore muscles. I just want to relax.
Yeah, that's why we're here doing this podcast. 100%. R.I.P. to AIM. I mean, there was one time I remember seeing a meme that's like, one day we logged out of AIM and never logged back in again. And
That
that
is
made
a
me
crazy
sad.
thought because it was such a big part of social life.
Yeah,
Like,
it
we
was.
think now you just shoot off texts left and right. We didn't have that. The
No.
only way that you communicated with people outside of school, if you weren't going to call them, and
Oof.
like I was going to call you and like end of list, but that's how you broadened your social networks. You kept in touch, and that's how you texted your crush and everything. Oh my gosh, and people would have those super emo away messages. Remember away
Yeah.
messages?
They were so emo. And even when you were I'm not going to be able to articulate this enough without specific examples. I feel like there's far better examples on the internet of like the amount of art you make with the different like keyboard symbols, working
Oh
in with the lyrics of
yeah.
the song, and they're always so angsty, and it's just because your crush logged on and then logged off and didn't say hi to you or said hey and then logged off like you thought it was going to be the best night of your life, and then it just ended up being like a night where me and you were like, hey, what's up, girl?
Pretty much. After we dialed on.
I did upload 2 little sound effects of the message received sound and the message sent sound on AIM. All of the sounds are so nostalgic. It's ridiculous. Is it nostalgic or nostalgic? Is it potato? Is it one of those kind of things?
I mean, who says potato?
Pecan or pecan?
Pecan was a good one. That was fair.
Pecan. Do you say pecan or pecan? You say pecan.
I say pecan. I've been to the pecan festival in
Oh,
Louisiana.
so you know.
Yeah, it's where a very good friend of mine grew up. It was like a county fair kind of thing. There was a parade.
Oh,
I was
fun.
in the parade. It was awesome.
You were in the parade?
Yeah.
Well, that just reminds me of Gilmore Girls when Rory is like the ice cream queen or something. I just
Yes.
immediately was envisioning you as the ice cream queen.
No, I was just in the back of a
You
truck.
were just a
But
girl.
my friend's mom back in high school was a pecanette. They were like the dancers in the pecan festival.
Oh, this is a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
This is total like charming small town vibes though, which is what we're eventually going to be talking about today. We wanted to do an episode. I don't even know what to call this one. We wanted to talk about like the cozy towns that we wish we could live in back in the day, probably still do. We grew up in a pretty cozy little town together.
It was tiny. It was one stoplight. A one stoplight town.
Yeah. One stoplight, not a lot else. But there was a few things. So we have a really famous tree.
It's a really old tree, and sometimes, fairly often, you'll see people that pull over on the side of the road and they hug this tree. It's massive.
Totally. I brought my friends from college to the tree, and you think like, it's just a tree, what's the big deal? And then you stand next to the tree and you're like, holy moly.
It's big.
It is enormous, and it's
Yeah.
really cool. I love a tree.
Oh, me too.
We're not huggers, but we're tree huggers.
Tree huggers. It's very different. It's a very different energy. I was watching Twin Peaks, and a character says to another character, "I know you're not a hugger, but I need a hug," and goes right in for the hug. It was perfect.
Anyway, we grew up in a little town, Western Massachusetts. There's a tree we've established. There's the pizza joint, which is it good? Where are we at with that? I want to see
It is.
if
I
what
don't
it's
think
rated.
I could honestly answer that question. It is such a nostalgic experience for me
Yes.
every time I eat it. And like, not only from just eating it growing up, but you and I had a particular tradition with this pizza shop
We
in high
did.
school, which was like the only not totally goody two shoes thing we ever did.
Extremely out of character.
Yeah.
Extremely out of character. Still can't believe that it happened to this day.
Like brazenly. So everyone listening to this is gonna be like, this is the worst thing you ever did. This is so boring. Anyway, in senior year of high school, you get to like leave campus. You get to, leave the parking lot for lunch. And we would drive to this pizza place, which was like 10 minutes away. And lunch was 25 minutes long, probably.
At most, yeah.
So we would leave, we would order a buffalo chicken pizza to split for lunch every time. And we would always come back late, but it was only one particular class we would do this to and come back late because that teacher was the worst. Ashley was valedictorian. We were such goody two shoes. That was a big thing for us.
I feel like maybe our principal was there once and she was like, what's up with this? And we were just like, oh, we're just running late. And she's like, whatever, you guys are so boring. 100% because of our AP Gov class.
Yes.
And the teacher
which
running
was
it.
Terrible.
Who, according to my mom, was not certified or something. Like she...
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that was her profession, was involving like certification of teachers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You know, she heard that we were watching The West Wing every day at AP Gov and was like,
it.
I don't know about that. And we're not being dramatic. We watched The West Wing every single day.
Listen, West Wing has since become one of my all-time favorite shows, but not because of that association at all. And I remember the class was so bad that when we took the AP exam, one of our classmates wrote one of the open-ended essays about like throwing birthday parties for congressmen.
Oh yeah, I think didn't someone, I feel like it was probably the same person, wrote an essay that just was like, you're never going to read this essay.
It was such a bad class. Anyway, Frontier Pizza, lots of memories associated.
A lot of memories. I think the general consensus is that the pizza's greasy. It's too greasy.
And like the crust, it is not anything special.
No. I looked. It's rated 4.3 stars on Google.
Yeah, I mean, there's not like
small
a lot
town
else
ratings
to choose from.
are very skewed.
Okay, there were some other cute parts of our town in addition to Frontier Pizza. It was also it's a really old New England town. So there were houses from like the 17th and 18th century everywhere.
Yes,
there was a sign on them to say what year they were built. That was really cool. We would have like little local parades. We had a whole big parade and festival for the town's 300th anniversary several years ago.
That was cute.
Yeah.
Did you go?
Yeah, I went home for that.
I don't know where I was.
I don't know that I went home for that, but I was home for it.
I hope you went home for that because that's adorable.
It feels like an important distinction. I was there. Yeah.
We also had big creamy culture. Creamy meaning the ice cream.
Which I found out, this is just not a thing everywhere. I really thought this was going to be a thing everywhere, and I have never again lived in a place that has these ice cream stands.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess I never really thought about it because I've been back in New England now for a while. Mm-hmm. I was bopping all around the country, and creamies, I guess, I can't really think of them like in California.
No. And, you know, granted, I've mostly lived in cities, but
yeah,
I have been friends with people who aren't from cities and nobody else has heard of them. And for our listeners, we're talking about the like seasonal ice cream stands. They usually had soft serve, maybe also had regular hard serve ice cream. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes. But they were always a seasonal thing. They were only open in the summer. They were usually this like smaller, like not totally weatherproofed structure, right? It only had to be open during the summer.
The popular girls worked there.
Always. Although I worked at, so like the popular girls worked at the one on the main road in town, but the one that was also a farm stand I worked at, but I wasn't allowed to work in the ice cream part.
Oh my gosh. That made me really sad for you. We definitely just had a general sense of farm culture, which I think is really charming now. I had this one really embarrassing memory where I was driving. I was probably like away at school or something, and then driving down the main street with my mom. And I put the window down. I took a big deep breath, and I was like, it smells like barbecue. And my mom was like, that's manure.
But that is such a nostalgic scent for me. I don't
know how I mistaken barbecue for manure. I do like the smell of manure in a way. I mean, it can be very overpowering.
Totally unrelated if you really think about it too much.
Yikes. Oh, okay, vegetarian. Vegetarianism has entered the chat.
Yes.
The one thing in our town, aside from the tree that is famous, is the corn maze.
Which I also worked at.
You did?
I worked there when I was 15.
How? Do I even know you at all?
It was just the summer, and they had a little cafe there, which is not anything. It was under like a pop-up tent then. I think they have a whole new system there now. But yeah, I worked there. It was so it's one of those mazes where they do the like intense images. It's a GPS coordinates image. And it was Albert Einstein that year.
Wow. And this maze is a big deal. It's pretty famous because of the way they did the art. And I think that was before that type of corn maze design was mainstream. And they did these very elaborate, beautiful, artistic mazes. It was enormous. And they would show the aerial shot of whatever it was that year. It was so gorgeous.
Yeah. They still do. It's still around.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say, I've been, and they have this new cool thing where they sector off this little section of the maze. And they have different local breweries, and they have like an adult night, and you go find the different breweries and just kind of walk around the corn with your little flashlight, do some trivia, drink some brews. So fun.
Go back this year.
But fun. Yeah, we should go.
That sounds amazing.
It was really fun.
Oh, so cute. Mike's Maze. That's the name of it.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a great town. It was a great town. And, I think the one thing that I haven't brought up yet is with this tiny little town, I don't remember what the population was.
7,000-ish.
Yeah, it's like small.
Yeah.
We didn't even go to high school in our town. We had to go to the town over. Yeah. But they would have these town hall meetings, these little local town hall meetings. And my aunt, who lives in New Jersey in like a much more populated area, always got such a kick out of that. Because she said it was just like Gilmore Girls. And this was years before I watched Gilmore Girls. And it's so funny looking back because Gilmore Girls, there's like a dozen people in those little town hall meetings. But like they're not that much bigger in our town.
Gilmore Girls, when you watch it through a more critical lens, you think of the size and infrastructure of the town and how there's constantly so many people milling about.
Yeah.
Just any given day, any given time. Like it clearly seems like a very populated town, right? And then there's like just these 10 core invested citizens and nobody else. What is the coziest place you've ever lived in, would you say?
I think I might go for where I'm living now. Outside of the really cozy town we just talked about growing up in, but in my adult life, the neighborhood we live in now. So I live in a big city, but within the confines of the city, we live in this quiet little neighborhood. Before we moved here, we used to just drive over into this neighborhood and roll the windows down to listen to the quiet.
Cute.
And it has these like gorgeous oak trees all around, like stretching over the roads. And it is one of those neighborhoods where actually we do have little civic club meetings, which I haven't been to, but we have them. And it's one of those neighborhoods where the kids all are running around on the street and knock on each other's doors and are out playing in the streets, which I feel like is really rare, especially outside of like a cul-de-sac or community like that. It's really sweet to see. So I think it's really cozy. We'll run into neighbors if we're out gardening, like people will stop and introduce themselves or tell us how good the house looks now, and it's really sweet. So many dogs. Yeah
I love that neighborhood type culture. Sounds like the last house, the one Chris and I bought together.
Yes.
Very close knit, but kind of like there were plenty of people who did their own thing, but ours was very like a suburban neighborhood that was built to serve a purpose. I lived in like a former mill town kind of, needed that infrastructure of just a whole bunch of houses that, obviously the town has changed over the years, but I love that too, to just see kids on bikes. Felt like a blast from the past because we were off of the main road and it gave you this sense of safety.
It really does.
Whether nowhere safe. Welcome to the Cozy Podcast.
Yeah. That's why we have to feel cozy. So anyway, what's the coziest place you've ever lived?
I lived in the coziest place maybe on the planet for a few years. And then because of who I am as a person and probably like, I don't know, trauma or something, I decided to leave. I was like, this is too cozy. I'm getting really healthy here. I'm happy. I'm a little bit lonely. So I have to go, basically. It was in Western Mass. Yeah, well, I'll unpack that in therapy. It was in Western Mass. It was only about 45 minutes from where we grew up. I went on this wild journey in my 20s of moving and moving and moving, like 2 to 3 times per year. Big moves. Yeah. You know this. All across the country for a variety of reasons. Some of them good, some of them not. Doesn't matter. I wanted to stop. So I was like, you know what's going to get me to stop is I'm going to buy a house. Well, I don't know how many people are like, I'm gonna buy a house so that I have to stop moving. But this was my primary motivation. So I wanted to be somewhere close to home that felt comfortable, safe, like I knew a place that I could exist for however long I ended up being there. And so I bought this house in the middle of nowhere. The houses I was looking at were so small and old. I had a very, very modest budget. I was buying this house by myself. It was relatively financially stable, but definitely not in a position to be making this kind of huge investment. I made it work, so I looked a little further. I got rural, found this little mountain town that we knew about because we used to go there to ski or snowboard on the little mountain called Berkshire East. And I went to go see this house. And I was so terrified to buy a house. This was definitely the biggest, most adult, high-stakes decision I had made in my entire life. I was so nervous, but I went to the house and I just fell in love with it. It was this gorgeous antique house. It was built in 1917. In the backyard, there was a literal babbling brook.
It was amazing.
With a gazebo looking over the brook. It was so charming, so cute. The town itself was really sweet. There was an antique shop I could walk to up the road, and I would get like an iced coffee and a scone on a Sunday morning. There was a little pizza place. There was a bigger river where you could go river tubing. Anyway, I'm romanticizing it, but it was so adorable, so cozy. I had a little wood stove, for Pete's sake. It was the definition of cozy, because we're still in Western Mass here, so it got cold. I learned how to make a fire. So I didn't know how to do that. Before owning my home, I'd burn myself on that wood stove all the time, but I loved it. So cozy.
I got to see that house and I just couldn't agree more. That is one of the coziest places I have ever seen. It was amazing.
Yes, and since I lived there during the pandemic, one of my stress reliever when we literally weren't leaving the house for a little while was to paint. And so I painted the entire house. Everything had a fresh coat. And I spent a lot of time decorating and made it very me, like more so. I never had nested really in a place before. That's what it's all about. The nest. You got to make a nest.
It was amazing. You did such a good job with it. And the brook and the gazebo.
So good. And then another thing that makes a place cozy, as you mentioned, is like the neighbors, the cast of characters. Like in a show, there's usually the quirky neighbors. I had so many quirky and sweet neighbors. It literally, telling it back, sounds kind of like a TV show. So there's this one instance where I had to leave for work early and there was a huge snowstorm. So I just did not worry about the snow. I was like, I just have to get to work. I floored it out of my driveway onto the busy street that I lived on, went to work. I'm coming home. It's late. It's dark. Has snowed all day. I know it's going to be terrible. And I was like almost crying, just thinking how I had to go shovel my driveway. And I come home and the driveway's clear. Someone has cleared it for me. This sweet man who he lived and owned this auto shop. I don't know where he lived, but he owned an auto shop that was across the street. And he would come over. He saw me struggling one day. And so after he started, he'd come over and he would plow my driveway for me every snowstorm.
Oh my God, that is so nice.
So sweet. And then in a less sweet anecdote, there was another man who lived down the street in front of one of the apartment buildings. And when he'd walk by, he'd often be sitting out on the sidewalk in his lawn chair. He was cute, quirky. But he one day asked me, I'm walking by, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to pet my ferret?"
Oh no.
And I was like, "What?" I looked down. He's literally holding a ferret.
How did you respond?
I mean, that was a relief, but I was like, no. No thanks. I'm all set. That was my cute, cozy town.
We've talked a lot about real things today, but should we talk about what makes a fictional TV town cozy?
We should get into it. Yeah, we came here for a reason, and it was talking about fictional TV and movie towns. Pretty much of our time period that we're covering in this podcast, right? 90s to early 2000s, places that we wish we lived, wanted to live. Yeah. So we've talked about things that make a town cute in real life, which I think extends definitely to these fictional places, right? Like there's always like the diner, cafe, meeting place, restaurant, place where people come together, they chat. There's usually like a quirky diner owner, other local businesses, got the quirky town regulars for
Always.
sure. The walkability.
Yeah, I can't think of a single cozy town TV where there wasn't at least a little downtown area you could walk through.
Why is walking so cozy?
I don't know, but it is.
So cozy.
Yes.
I'm a big walker now.
Oh my gosh, I like die for your Instagram stories of the little shops that you visit in your town right now. Like I have a cozy neighborhood. There's no walkable shops, and it kills me.
Oh, being walkable is so nice. But then the same thing is you trade the walkability for not having space, yard, privacy, quiet.
Speaking of privacy, another thing that comes up in TV shows that I actually would not find cozy in real life is how everybody knows everybody.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
a bit
want
much.
that. I want some more anonymity than that.
Even when we were talking about the neighborhood and knowing neighbors and having some like friendly neighbors and people introducing themselves, there are days when that's really sweet and charming, and other days where I'm like, get off my stoop.
Yes, leave me alone. This is not
respectfully and kindly. Leave the yard.
Yes. Goodbye.
Yeah, I don't think I love that, but the community aspect, the camaraderie, the festivals.
Yes.
Love that. I love that, like being part of something, but also you can be kind of anonymous because it's like a big group event. You're not getting like singled out. That I love, that sense of community, that feeling. Like I think that's the feeling that I've been chasing my whole life, is that feeling of like, this is it, this is my home, this is where I belong. Haven't found it yet, but stay tuned. Let's talk about our favorite fictional towns. Why don't you go first?
Okay, so you're going to stick with me for both of mine for a little bit. So a little disclaimer for my number one. Just Twin Peaks, Washington, from the show Twin Peaks, which, yes, this show is about a murder, and it is about some mystical, dark, and evil things. However, it is also one of the coziest shows I have ever seen, and I think that is 90% due to the town itself. 10% due to the character of Special Agent Dale Cooper, as played by Kyle MacLachlan. He is cozy personified. I truly think that character is amazing. But the town itself is amazing. So it's set in Washington, and it was mostly filmed in Washington State, primarily in the towns of, Snoqualmie is how I'm going to guess you say that, but there's no way that's right. North Bend and Fall City. And this show was created by David Lynch, and I did want to take a moment. This episode won't come out until quite a bit later, but David Lynch passed away not that long before we're recording, and he was just such an amazing visionary filmmaker. I'm so thankful that he brought us Twin Peaks, and I actually want to get so much more into his filmography than I have so far. But he was amazing, and just wanted to recognize that because we got that sad news just a few weeks ago.
He was incredible.
So like I said, this is about a murder. The whole show is who murdered Laura Palmer.
Also, I just want to say, don't tell me who it is because I haven't finished the first season or I haven't finished the series. I don't know.
I will
Don't
not
spoil it for
I will
me.
not spoil this for you or our listeners because I'd be willing to bet there are some people who have
I
not
haven't
seen
discovered
it
it yet.
And
Yeah.
I would also say I don't really care about that part.
Okay.
So they did reveal who the murderer was in the show, but that was really a result of network pressure because David Lynch was like, that's not really what this is about. But it was kind of groundbreaking TV at the time to have something so weird on major network television. And so there was quite a bit of conflict between David Lynch and the network, and they basically forced him to reveal the killer. So I don't really care
Interesting.
about that part anyway, but I will certainly not spoil it for you. So something that I think is really funny about this fictional town is they actually have a Wikipedia page specifically about the fictional town. So like, of course there's one about the show, but they have one about the fictional town itself because it's kind of so iconic. Some of the great places, so we talked about like all of these fictional towns have like the local cafe. So there's the Double R Diner in Twin Peaks where so much happens. Two of the main characters work at the diner. One of them owns the diner, who, by the way, the actress's name is Peggy Lipton, and she was the mother of Rashida Jones. Fun fact. She plays Norma. She's great. One of, I think, the coziest places in town is the Great Northern Hotel, which is like one of the iconic shots from the opening sequence, which is one of my favorite opening credits of a show ever. The music, that if that is not cozy music, I don't know what cozy music is. And the waterfalls are right there outside of the hotel. The hotel just has all this like wood and beams and fireplaces, and it is so great. It's something called the Salish Lodge in real life, so you can actually go stay there. It looks quite modern now in comparison, but someday it's on my dream list. Both of those places, by the way, the hotel and the cafe, are places where Dale Cooper gets a damn fine cup of coffee.
Great line.
He's into the cozy.
Yes, he is.
Even I think the sheriff's department, like the police station there, is cozy. It's again like got like the like wood paneling. Everyone's like nice and gentle, and they always have so many donuts. Like even in the pilot, they have this like spread of dozens of donuts out, which is just amazing. The trees, like the outdoor setting, you know, in the pilot, when Dale Cooper's talking to his assistant, Diane, and his little recorder, he's talking about the trees. He asks the sheriff what kind of trees they have. Douglas firs. It's beautiful. And I think even when they start to get into some of the darker sides of the show and more mystical stuff, there's, you know, the place called the Red Room, which is got the zigzag patterns and the red curtains, people talking backwards and weird stuff. I even think that is kind of cozy.
Stretch, but I support you.
That's fair. That is totally fair. But overall, I would love to spend time in Twin Peaks. Hopefully not because someone was murdered, but I think that is just about the coziest town there is.
Oh my gosh. I was laughing in my head almost the entire time because I picked Cabot Cove, Maine from Murder, She Wrote. Murder's in the title.
Which, by the way, I have never seen, and now I'm ashamed because it's your favorite show.
Well, it's recently my favorite show, so it's one of these shows that's nostalgic as it exists, right? It's like a time capsule. It's capturing like the cozy feeling, but it's not nostalgic for me because I saw it a long time ago. I've literally like recently started watching it. It was one of those ones that I assumed I wouldn't like because it's so like grandma-ish, you know? And then I was like, wait a second.
It is. That is what you like now.
That's me. Here I am. But it's also about crime. Like literally someone gets murdered every single episode, but in the coziest setting ever. So Cabot Cove is where the main character, Jessica Fletcher, who's a mystery writer, lives. So a lot of the episodes take place there, but she also is a world traveler. So she is going from place to place, town to town. Everyone's getting murdered around her. So she's clearly a serial killer, but that's, not ever where the show goes.
You say it sounds like a really small town to have so many murders.
So I want to read the description on Peacock. It's, quote, mystery writer and amateur detective Jessica Fletcher solves crimes in an idyllic Cabot Cove, Maine, the murder capital of the United States. This stat is something like 5.3 murders per year or something, which is absurd. If anyone knows anything about Maine, it is not like that. There are probably not 5 murders in the entire state per year. I have no idea the statistics.
Stephen King has something to say about that.
Yeah,
a lot of fictional murders.
100%, but it's a very boring place when it comes to any sort of action like that. It's just known for being a very slow living, happy living, like, I don't know, we're just like fishing and hanging out. That's what we do in Maine, apparently. But Cabot Cove is such a fun town and very similar to a lot of what you're saying about Twin Peaks, but I would say like the New England version, completely fictional. I have looked up, I've seen different towns that it's been suggested that it was based on, or that we could say is most similar to, like Castine, Maine, which is not a very well-known town, but it's about, I think, an hour further up the coast than where I am, and then also Boothbay Harbor, which is pretty close to where I'm living now, so like mid-coast, rocky coastal Maine. It was not filmed in Maine at all, which is something that's funny and cozy-ish about the show. There's a complete non-existence of weather.
Oh.
Like, I feel like that's a lot of cozy shows, is they're always comfortable walking around.
You're very right.
Walkable cities become a little bit less charming when it's 2 degrees and windy.
Yeah.
Or
like raining all the time.
Exactly, like in the Pacific Northwest, right?
Yeah.
So there's never snow, which is funny because the show is based in Maine. It snows here a lot. It was filmed in California, so primarily Mendocino, California.
Okay.
I love California. I think it's gorgeous. It does not look like Maine.
It sure does not.
But the show has a lot of these beautiful shots of the coast, the California coast.
Oh, okay.
It's really nice. It's not Maine, but it has a lot of similarities to what you're talking about with Twin Peaks. So it has like the charming local eateries. It has a bookstore. Unfortunately, the bookstore owner ends up being a murderer. A lot of people end up being a murderer. Well,
you have that many murders, so you have to have a lot of murderers.
We do. I have to have a lot of introduced side characters who are then like, you're the murderer. Same thing, cozy local police department. For many of the early seasons, the police chief is friends with Jessica, and they have like a really cute, cozy friendship. And he's just he's supposed to have a Maine accent. It's really bad, as a lot of these shows.
What is a Maine accent? Is it just a Boston accent?
Similar.
Okay.
I don't know how to describe the difference, but yeah, ours aren't a thing as much. But, just like anything else, there's a genuine version, and then there's the Hollywood version, which they don't nail. There's also the hair salon where ladies are gathering to gossip. There's these gorgeous, beautiful, amazing, these cozy coastal homes. And, there's murder. Not exactly cozy, but the concept of the cozy mystery is something that I didn't fully appreciate. And as a genre as a whole, because you think of murder as, not very cozy. But there's somehow this mystery portion that has become this whole huge genre. And this show is just the epitome of every episode is its own cozy mystery that Jessica is being a little busybody and working hard to solve. Angela Lansbury is incredible. I think both of the shows that we've talked about just have these super strong leads that are just really cozy people. And that makes the show all the cozier.
Oh, I can't wait to try this someday. I will watch this show.
You have to. What's your second pick?
Well, so we just hit up 2 weirdly similar shows on opposite coasts, and now I'm going to go a totally different direction. And I am going to talk about the 19th century English countryside. Specifically, let's talk Pride and Prejudice for our examples, but you could apply this to really any adaptation of Jane Austen, some things with the Bronte sisters, just that general time period. And perhaps it's really specifically the movies and TV shows that have been made based on books from that time period. But Pride and Prejudice, which counts in our timeline, whether we're talking about the BBC show, which came out in 1995, or the movie with Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadyen, which came out in 2005. It's like perfectly in our little niche. Something that people used to describe kind of how people interacted in that period of time is just one of my favorite phrases, which is gentle manners. People had gentle manners. And
I don't
think
like
that's
that.
So I don't like it for today. Like, I think it could be like, oh, this is what was expected of women and it's not good. But I think that's like some of where you get the cozy.
Yeah.
From that is just there was this pleasant way in which people mostly interacted with one another.
It sounds very Southern.
It does. You're right. Like we picked that up. Yeah.
A little fake.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine.
But
I find it cozy.
That's totally... Your feelings are valid.
Thank you.
I'm not being very gentle-mannered right now.
We are not. I wouldn't consider either of us gentle-mannered people.
No. You are. Maybe you are. I think you are.
Well, I've lived in the South a total of like 7 years now. So anyway, some other things about the setting of Pride and Prejudice. It's all very community-based, if you really think about it. It's all based on people interacting with one another. Yes, typically at a particular social strata, although we could talk about something like Downton Abbey as part of this, which expands that group of people that I appreciate. But I've heard Pride and Prejudice described as like, what's so special? It's literally just people going to other people's houses and talking, which is spot on. That is spot on. But it's also so much more than that. And I really enjoyed the book, by the way. I was not expecting to enjoy the book. I thought it was going to be like old and stodgy or something. It's hilarious. The book is so funny. So anyway, why it's cozy. So thinking about like the community, I love that in everyone's houses, they have this like salon. They have this room where you just kind of sit during the day or on certain days as a family. And someone might be reading and someone might be sewing. Mostly you're talking. There's always snacks. And we haven't really talked about snacks as being cozy so far, but there's always snacks. Someone might be playing piano in the corner, and people come and visit. And that's what you do. Like, that's what happens in these rooms. That is what is on your schedule. People come and visit and chat with you, and maybe there's courtship involved there, but maybe it's just polite conversation and friends getting together. And I think that's super cozy. The idea of promenading, where like people literally went out with, your friend or with your family or a small group, and you walked around and you ran into people and you had conversations with them. I think it's this really cute small town thing that we would view very differently if it were in Stars Hollow instead of the English countryside, as an example. And then my final example of cozy, the carriages that they ride in, I think are just like such a cozy form of transportation versus what we have now. It just seems like so nice. You could look out the windows. Mostly the shades were drawn and you were looking at each other as you were traveling. I don't know. I think things were cozy back then based on the movies they make now.
It's giving like princess vibes, princess in a castle, but a little bit more attainable. Like maybe we could have bits of that,
yes,
just being a vicar or whatever. What were you if you were middle class in the 19th century English countryside? I don't know.
So I think that the Bennett family in Pride and Prejudice, I don't know if they were totally middle class, but they were not in the upper echelons of society. They had that smaller, cozy home. Everybody was sharing rooms. I mean, not everybody, but they like did not have this palatial estate. So I think they were kind of closer to that. I do not know what Mr. Bennett did for a living. I did know he was played by Donald Sutherland in the movie, and he was great.
Oh, yeah. Great,
Yeah.
great actor. You've convinced me. It's cozy. I wasn't sure at first, but I'm on board. Well, let's move on to my pick because as as we're getting to know me, well, if anyone's listening to Monster Med and its continuation with Sara, Don't Look Under the Med, you know that it's a big horror, true crime fan, somewhat reformed. Okay, I'm starting to relapse. I'm wearing my ghost face cardigan.
Oh, I'm excited for you.
Have I watched new horror? No. Am I re-embracing that as part of my identity? Somewhat. Basically, what happened is I had a baby, got terrible postpartum anxiety, and was like, the only thing that is safe to watch is golf. Did I like golf previously? No. Do I like golf now? No. Did I like golf when I had postpartum anxiety? Oh, yes.
It's very calming. They speak in like very calm
so
tones.
Benign. Nothing bad ever happens. And that was pretty much all I could tolerate, was something that was like very dull. Respectfully. Golfers are amazing, talented, very athletic in their own way. It's not an exciting sport to watch.
No, it is not.
So that was all that I would watch, and I couldn't tolerate. There was so much of the horror movies that I had watched that was traumatizing me and giving me more anxiety that I was like, I really don't think this is healthy. But on the other hand, there was a lot of horror that I watched at a time when I had just standard issue anxiety, just a whole run-of-the-mill anxiety and depression in college, and movies like Scream, which I become very attached to, that I watched, and it spoke to me in this strange way of making me feel more resilient. There's a lot of discussion about this and the concept of horror and mental health and its detriments, and also the way that it helps very many people like me to help cope during a challenging time. So it's a very interesting concept to me. There's a lot of horror movies that I find very comforting. One of them is Scream. Another one is Halloween. And I think part of it is that they have really cozy towns in some of them, or just really fun towns. And to fully give a caveat to like the type of horror fan that I was and the type of horror fan that I may or may not be in the future, so I love the same kind of horror as other things that I love. So very campy, kind of over the top. I do not like body horror, gore, very bleak, depressing, super dark, disturbing. I don't like any of that. It sounds bizarre, but like I like to have a fun time with my horror.
Strange.
It's a total thing, right? Like Scream is in large part a comedy.
Yeah.
And it's in large part
absolutely.
a mystery. It's whole concept is based on being meta, which I also love in film. Anyway, Halloween is another one that is just like very cozy, very nostalgic, and it's set in this town called Haddonfield. It's in Illinois, so this is a very common movie, TV setting of the Anytown USA concept, right?
Okay,
This could be anywhere. It's kind of vanilla, but also in a way that's like the quintessential kind of neighborhood, right? Kids walking down sidewalks, tree-lined streets. It has this feeling of safety. And then in a not very cozy way, right? We're like, hey, this bad stuff could happen anywhere. And Halloween was one of the first more popular movies that took that concept of that like sense of safety and tranquility and look at this cute neighborhood we're in, and then just have this like kind of terrible thing happen there. But the movie is really, it's not like a very graphic, disturbing horror movie for anyone who's seen it. It was directed and scored by John Carpenter. Incredible.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
is so talented, and he co-wrote a screenplay with Deborah Hill. She's also amazing. And there have been 13, I believe, Halloween films.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's more than Fast and Furious.
Oh, wow. At what point did you learn how many Fast and Furious movies there have been?
Oh, I don't. My guess is still 10. Okay. Maybe there's more.
I don't care.
No.
I don't know why I even followed up on that. But anyway, 11 of the 13 have been set in Haddonfield. The Halloween franchise is kind of a hot mess, but that's okay. There's some fun ones in there. And Haddonfield is definitely a main player throughout all of the films. So I love like the bungalow style houses. Like I said, this is the original movie is on Halloween night. So there's that whole small town trick-or-treating.
Oh, yeah.
Montages, and that gets me every time. Nothing would make me feel more nostalgic than like childhood trick-or-treating montages, especially in a cozy, cute, decorated neighborhood with all the kids running around in their costumes. Love it. Haddonfield, I'm sure, must have been part of the inspiration for Hawkins, Indiana and Stranger Things.
Oh, cool.
I would think. It's the same, like Midwestern,
right?
Kids biking around, getting up to antics, just this like nothing ever happens here and then something crazy happens here.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the cozy. Aside from those wonderful towns that we just discussed, both of mine involve murder or horror, so I'm clearly relapsing. So, buckle up, cozy listeners.
I'm here for it.
I always it's always about being cozy, comfortable, having a fun time at the end of the day. Sometimes we just each, like for you, the English countryside, romance, family dynamics, kind of back in time, that really made you feel cozy, where I'm like, yeah. And then to me, I'm like, Halloween night slasher.
Yeah. The threat of being murdered, so cozy.
You know what? I don't have a good argument against that. But watching it, very cozy. Horror can be very cozy. Pizza, beer, blankets, dim lights, spooky music.
Yeah.
It's cozy.
And some kind of ending.
There's a resolution, and sometimes someone survives.
A resolution. Yeah.
The final girl is one of my favorite tropes. It's a lot, and there's a lot to say about that. A lot of them are not great, but they survive. And then a lot of them are incredible.
Yes.
Sydney Prescott, fantastic.
Yes.
Love her.
Agreed.
Honorable mentions. Shall we move on to those? I don't think we need to really dwell on these a whole lot, but we can kind of just throw them out there at other places we found cozy. So neither of us picked Stars Hollow, but obviously when we're describing a cozy town, when anyone's describing a cozy town, you can't ignore Stars Hollow.
We didn't pick it, but I talked about it 3 times.
Yeah. It all comes back to Stars Hollow, this entire conversation, right? And then you also brought up a Pacific Northwest setting.
Yes.
There are many others. I just love a Pacific Northwest. I think it's because it's so cozy because of the gloomy rain. Where living that is probably a little bit uncomfortable. I've never lived in a place like that. But watching it, it's so moody and
I want to live there so bad. And I
wanted
told
to live there.
that it gets depressing, and I refuse to believe it. I believe it could be depressing to somebody who likes going outside all the time.
Right.
But as my doctor told me, I have a vitamin D deficiency because that is not who I am. I do for real.
No, we all do. Don't worry too much about it.
It's not going to get better if I move to the Pacific
You just
Northwest.
presented that in a way as if you're a cave troll who doesn't leave the house, which I know is not true.
Kind of, though.
So good. So Forks, Washington, which is a real place, but obviously heavily fictionalized because I don't believe there are vampires and werewolves. Werewolves? Oh no. Werewolves. That was new. And then another Pacific Northwest setting that I put in there was about the show The Secret Circle. Did you watch this?
I don't know if I've heard of that.
Okay, so it was a little later on in our timeline, and we were no longer together. Okay, we were no longer in our little bubble of elementary school and high school.
Yes.
I think it was when we were in college that it came out. It only ran for one season, but it was definitely part of the Twilight Vampire Diaries era. So it was a book series that then became a TV show. The TV show was not great, but it was in this fake town of Chance Harbor, Washington, and it just had all of those misty woods, coastal, foggy. Love all of that.
Beautiful.
And it was witchy and fun, and I was like, I need to move to the Pacific Northwest because everything's going to be better there. And, you know, somehow never did. It's kind of a shock that I didn't just give that a shot.
There's always still time.
That's true. So then we have like a few others. I love the really overly exaggerated holiday towns. So like Halloween Town was a really big one with us growing up. I don't really know much about the town other than that it was just Halloween and monsters and it was just like Halloween threw up.
I don't think they built out the town much besides that.
It really was
like a theme park.
Right. That is a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
Which was so fun. And then Salem, Mass, which is a real place. I lived there. It certainly has some charm and some cuteness and some lovely Halloween vibes, but also I did not enjoy my time living there for other reasons. There was just like a lot of catcalling when I lived there.
Oh, no.
This was also the time when catcalling was like in full swing, which I know was a long part of our our society.
Where it's not a thing anymore, but less.
No, it's a little less socially acceptable. Not that people who catcall really abide by such cultural norms. But I had a really hard time with that there. That's not very cozy. Then catcalling, not cozy.
The fictionalized version of Salem.
Great.
Cozy.
Downtown is a lot of fun and is everything that you imagine it to be. Very fun, very cozy, very Halloween. Then The Nightmare Before Christmas. I love Tim Burton and everything that he does, his artistry. I think he is extremely cozy, like Edward Scissorhands. I did not watch that for many years. But when I did watch it, it was not what I expected. And it was such a cozy movie. Love it. And then the Whoville from Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I was trying to say the Jim Carrey version. Oh, I love Whoville in that movie.
I don't think there's any more cozy Christmas setting than Whoville. It's amazing.
So good. So good. And then our last little category that I made up here was a town for overly coiffed hot teenager drama.
Which I don't even entirely know what that means, but the second I saw it, I added.
You added something.
I added something. I added Cape Side, Massachusetts, which is the town from Dawson's Creek, because that is what I picture when you say overly coiffed hot teenager drama.
I don't even know what that means either, but I put Pretty Little Liars, which was in some random town in Pennsylvania, and The Vampire Diaries, which was in some random town in Virginia.
Huh. Fun fact, Dawson's Creek was set in Massachusetts, but filmed in North Carolina. Yeah.
I feel like I knew that. I've never seen the show, though.
Weird. Yeah.
All right, let's stop talking about cozy towns. I think we've talked about cozy towns.
We have.
To death. We talked about murder so much on our cozy podcast. This is not a true crime podcast. Okay, well, let's wrap up today's episode. We have been having a lot of fun recording the podcast so far. If you've been enjoying it as well, it would really help us out if you leave us a rating, 5 stars, please, or a review, positive only, please. We take constructive feedback, but right now, just say hey, touch base with us, follow us on our social medias. We're at Comfort Culture Pod. We love to connect with you. We're on Instagram, apparently on TikTok, where I'm going to sound old again. I don't know how TikTok works. Sarah's going to handle that part. We're thinking about maybe going on YouTube. we're trying to get out there. And so we want to hear from you. Eventually, we want to have more listener participation, hear your nostalgic stories about the shows you loved. So follow us over there to keep up with the podcast and say hey. All right, till next time. Bye.
Bye.